Hello everybody and welcome back. All right, today I'm going to just quickly in this video going to go over a couple of different things about AnyNode and why it matters, what it does. It can be anything. What does that mean? I got a lot of questions on Reddit about at first people sort of didn't understand where I was going with it, which is, you know, that's kind of normal for me. But then people started thinking that it has something to do with like replacing nodes, which can be done with any node. I think that you can replace some nodes with any node as long as you give like a good enough prompt. But the thing that you can't really, so what AnyNode is not. AnyNode is, it's not another text generator, okay? This uses OpenAI. It uses, I just got it recently using any OpenAI compatible service, which means that you can run it on Ollama, like with Ollama, you can run it with VLLM and other services that are compatible. And I also got it, well, I don't have it working quite yet with Gemini, but it's about to be. So, the idea here is that if we've got something that we want, right? Like, okay, let's just take this a step back real quick. Let me just go ahead and turn off. Let me turn my there we go, splines. Okay, so we can see better what's connected to what. All right, let's check this out. We've got our AnyNode, which says, I want you to output the image with a hue rotation by random degrees between 40 and 320, tweak the saturation and lightness drastically, but stretch the levels out so there is still the same luminosity range. You might notice that there is a scroll bar here. We will get to that. For now, I'm just kind of showing what the actual node request sort of is, and then I'll show you sort of some prompting techniques for LLMs afterwards. So for right now, let's just say that to tell you again what AnyNode is not, it is not just for making text, and it's not even, someone I think asked me on this specific, an image of this specific workflow, they asked me if I was sending this to GPT Vision. I was not. This is literally creating a function for me inside of this node, and then it's saving that function in the node, and then it is running that function whenever I asked it to run again. So if I just run the prompt again, remember I asked it to be random degrees between 40 and 20. Okay, so then if we scroll down a little bit, I'm telling it use the current system time as the random seed. Now, some of this stuff gets into pretty programmery, you know, technical things that you kind of have to know. But the thing is that you don't even really have to worry about it so much, because I'm working on making it so that there's a lot more in the context that will give the LLM like hints as to exactly what people mean. And I've got some ideas for that. So, so yeah, what I'm doing here is I'm just changing. So I'm having it take an image. Oh, the other thing about AnyNode is that you can link any node to any node. You can link any node to any other node, and then back and forth successively. So I've got this workflow, right? And you can see that it's making very different types of images with my input, my original image, right? So this is where I started from, and then I use AnyNode to do that, right? But what happens if I just do this over here? I take my image scale to pixels, and I'm just gonna go ahead and here we go. I'm gonna go ahead and do this. I'm gonna bypass AnyNode here, okay? AnyNode will still run, but I'm just bypassing it so that it's this image which is going in here, and you'll see that the colors, this is something that's always bothered me, and this is kind of one of the reasons why this is one of the first nodes that any nodes that I've prompted up. So the idea being that the color of an image when you send it to an image-to-image workflow, with the VA encoder putting that into your K-sampler and denoising it a bit. So if I keep clicking generate here, you'll notice that this is not affecting here, right? But I'll just put in a couple of them so that while I'm talking, you can see these generations happen. And then what I'll do is I'll hook this, wait, where was it? Yeah, I'll hook this back up over there, and then I'll like queue up a couple more. So you can see that the colors, even though I have denoising at 6 or 0.6, that's 60% denoising. My prompt is a classic, a vintage car, right? So I'm turning this, I think it's a new DeLorean or something like that. I'm turning it into a classic car. But you'll see as all these images pan out that there's, there's kind of like certain things that are in the image because the colors suggest that those things should kind of be there as the image is diffusing. So what I noticed is that now that I've got this node, you'll see a lot of the same types of things and a lot of the same sort of tropes, the same type of background and stuff like that when the color is the same. I haven't mentioned anything in the background, right? So the only thing that it's really actually focusing on making specific is the vintage car, and it's kind of hallucinating everything else. But the thing is that what it hallucinates of everything else is kind of limited. So here was my first, wait, no, this was one, okay, this was, so I'm not sure where I am in the queue. Maybe I just queued up 5, I guess. So the idea here is that if you change the colors, or even just the hue, saturation, and lightness, which is what I'm focusing on here, you actually end up with different types of hallucinated things because those colors kind of tell Stable Diffusion, your Stable Diffusion model, like I want, these are the things that those colors suggest on the next step of diffusion, right? So if this is green, right? And I'm noticing that I probably get like grass. There we go. There's some grass. So it's like on this road that just ends or whatever with some grass, right? Little mountains in the background. So this node is this node that I prompted up is pretty cool. Let's take a little closer look at the node, and okay, you'll be like, wait a minute, you're cheating here. You're using a function in Python. Isn't it just putting the function in there? Well, no, it isn't, because this function is an example. Why did I have this in here? Because, well, that's kind of just what it is, what you have to do for LLM prompt engineering, right? It has a little bit of awareness as to what the input type is and what the output type is. If it's like a tensor or whatever, it can see the shape. So you don't have to really mention too much, but I mentioned here, like, look, the input should have 4 dimensions. It should have the batch, the width, the height, the color channel representing the batch of RGB images, so that our system can know what's going on, And so this example, like, we don't even have to look at the code because this is actually just another function that was generated. If you wanted to see what types of functions it generates or like what it generates, this is the generated function. Well, that's a nice, cool looking classic car with a nice, cool color scheme. Anyway, so we've got like over here, it says, here is a working example that rotates hue by 180 degrees and, more importantly, outputs the right tensor shape. So that was my problem, is that like when I was trying to do this, I was getting errors saying like the tensor shape is wrong and stuff like that. And I'm actually going to get into this here in a little bit, which is, so what happens when we change the instruction? What happens when we change the instruction? Well, what does happen? So let's just say, right, like I don't want to do that anymore, but I kind of do want to, So I'm going to say tighten the levels out so there is less luminosity range, right? Okay. So it's already doing some random stuff for me because I asked it to do random. But if I just asked it to, you know, tweak the hue by 180 degrees, it generated the function for me to do that. And you might ask, like, where do these functions get stored? Well, they don't really get stored. They're stored in memory while the node is in function, and they're cached so that the node can doesn't have to call your LLM up anymore. And you might also be wondering, hey, is there any is there any AnyNode that can connect to Gemini, or is there any AnyNode that can connect to a local LLM? Yes, there is. I just made this change this morning, and this lets you just hook right up to you know, whatever model that you want to pass as the model, whatever server you want. You can run it on your local host. This is using Ollama, so like that's just the API key name here, but it works just like any other AnyNode, and but it uses whatever model that you want to be running locally. So that was a very nice big update today on day 3 of development of AnyNode. Ooh, I love those auburn colors. So that's interesting what it did, huh? It really tweaked them colors, eh? Like if we look at the difference between, okay, here's the original image, and here's them color tweaks. And then you end up with like a completely different thing. So I've actually got Ollama running right now, and if you've got let me just put in AnyNode here, and so we need to put something into the AnyNode because it always has an input and an output. Technically, it doesn't have to. Well, no. It does. It does. But we could make an exception there. So let's just work with some very simple stuff. Integer. So this is a nice little thing that just gives you a little integer variable, and let's hook it up to this as the input and there as the input, and let's just, okay, we'll do 4 multiplied by 5, and we're going to output to text. Oh, show text, so that we can just kind of like see what's going on here. Sure. Oh. Show text. There we go. All right. There is our setup. Now, we have to. Oh. Okay, it thinks a whole bunch of stuff is in history, but it ain't. Well, anyway, that'll clear. So I've got Mistral running on my Ollama instance on my local host, and so now we're going to. This one is running on OpenAI with my OpenAI API key. If you guys want me to do a tutorial on that later on, also please mention in the comments below, like, you know, of course, like, subscribe, blah blah blah, but mention in the comments below if you'd like to see any sort of other features coming for AnyNode. I have one other thing that really is gonna probably, I don't know what kind of craziness it's going to bring upon the world, but it will be able to, you'll be able to export your nodes. So if you make a node that makes a cool function, that's not just multiplying the input by 5. Here, let's run this actually. Well, if you make a node that has a cool function, then it'll basically code the rest of the input for you. So it literally will, well, there we go. Look, OpenAI answered 20 and AnyNode answered 20. Let's try something a little bit harder. Calculate pi. Well, okay, this is not even going to use it's not even going to reference the input, right? But I'm going to say calculate pi up to 80 places after the decimal. Okay, and I'm going to try to get Mistral to do it, and I'm going to try to get so remember, I'm not telling these things to make me this text output. I'm telling it to write me a function that then gets run in AnyNode, and it outputs whatever output type of thing that I desire. So it's not using AI to make a fancy output. It's using AI to, wow, okay, Mistral. Geez, okay. All right. Got some bugs. Right, so decimal is not defined. Oh, right. So here's the problem. One of the things is that I currently don't know yet, but I'm going to have to figure out how to do this. I've got to figure out how to get every library that's available to you in your current Python-like setup or whatever. I need that to be available to you for the coding, so that you can like make it code you anything that you want. But okay, let's this one failed, and then Mistral obviously failed like pretty horribly on this. Calculate pi up to 80 places. I'll probably write the like show the code for that or whatever afterwards. But let's just load up. Sobel. Yeah. Give me some of that Greek yogurt. Okay, what do we have going on here? We've got my same other AnyNode that I copied in my workflow. Oh, by the way, guys, the other thing about this is if you want, like, so this saves an example, right? I've saved an example here, and the example is used as part of my prompt to tell it, like, hey, this is the kind of thing you need to do. These are the outputs, the right output shape, so you don't have an error. But at the same time, this is also saving code within my AnyNode that gets saved directly to my workflow whenever I save it. So that's kind of cool. All right, so let's try to get GPT-4o, which is the default that I've set up for AnyNode, the latest one. Let's try and get that to run a function. Sweet, it made me a Sobel filter. Okay. So I just asked it for, this needs to be, it's like the same, it's the same exact, roughly the same exact prompt as this, except the top part of the prompt is different. This one I'm like doing a hue rotation for colors and stuff. And then over here, I'm just doing like a Sobel filter. And then in my positive prompt, I'm telling it it should be a charcoal sketch of Greek yogurt with stuff. And look at that. That is quite the sketch. And I didn't use any LoRa. I'm just using DreamShaper 8. There's no like special junk that I'm doing in the background. It's just, it knows how to code a Sobel filter. But I also noticed, like, okay, I don't really want color in the filter because I'm feeding the filtered image that's coming out of AnyNode directly into here. So, or sorry, directly into my K sampler, right? So what I should probably do is tell it to make it a black and white Sobel edge filter. Black and white. All right. Now it is going to recode my function, and it's going to recode it with the previous function that it had already generated for the Sobel filter as part of the reference to like what's already there, So bam. This kind of mitigates the hallucination of LLMs so that it has more of a tendency to code something that's closer to what you just had it code. And I've been trying to do a little bit of like error checking and stuff like that, but that's not necessarily going the fastest. But there we go. There's our original image. Some like, is that kashi or those are almonds or walnuts? That special type of walnut. But then here is that's what we ended up with. This is like a weird universe where the tops of coffee are actually swirls of cream. like the entire top of the coffee cup. Like this is, or is this just like way too much cream that this person added? It looks like it was gonna be a Starbucks cup. Anyway, so yeah, look at the Sobel filter. By the way, I do have this rescaling the image down to 0.4 megapixels, just to, you know, take things easy on my GPU. And really it will code up anything. I mean, anything. I just haven't even had enough time to really sit with it and make some cool workflows and stuff. So that's what I'm gonna be doing over maybe the next couple of days over this week. I think I'm gonna have to actually take a break because this weekend was intense. It's a 3-day weekend, and all Saturday and all Sunday I was just nonstop working on this. So anyway, thank you everybody for your support and your guidance. Let's make this thing really super awesome for the community. And yeah, until next time, thank you very much.